What if the very pill you take to manage your health is silently eroding your mind? What if a common, over-the-counter remedy is slowly chipping away at the very core of who you are? Your memories, your clarity, your sense of self. Welcome, my friends. Professor Vitalis here with your daily dose of wisdom and wellness, where science and experience walk hand in hand. Today, we are venturing into a territory that is often overlooked, a shadowy corner of modern medicine that affects millions. We're going to talk about dementia and cognitive decline. For generations, we were taught to accept that a fading memory was an inevitable tragedy of aging. We were told it was simply a part of the journey. But what if I told you that this is a profound misunderstanding? Recent groundbreaking research has entirely overturned this old belief. The science is now clear. Significant memory loss is not a normal part of getting older. Conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's disease are not caused by the simple passing of years, but by specific pathological processes happening inside the brain. Think of it like rust on a machine, not the simple wear and tear of use. These processes involve the accumulation of proteins like beta amyloid and tau, which create plaques and tangles that damage our precious neural tissue. And this is actually a message of profound hope. Why? Because if cognitive decline is a disease process and not an inevitability, it means we can influence it, we can fight back. We already know the cornerstones of brain health: a balanced diet, consistent physical activity, mental stimulation, and managing chronic conditions like hypertension and diabetes. But there is another powerful factor, one that often hides in plain sight, right inside your medicine cabinet. Today, we will shine a light on 8 common categories of medications that, through their chemical actions, can pose a significant risk to your cognitive health. Please, stay with me, because the 7th one we discuss is particularly insidious, and its risks are almost never discussed. All the scientific references for our discussion today are available for you, so you can delve deeper into the data yourself. Let's begin with our first, and perhaps most surprising, culprit. Number 1. The hidden dangers of omeprazole and its cousins. You may know it by its brand name or others in its class like lansoprazole and pantoprazole. These are known as proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs, and they are massively popular for treating heartburn, acid reflux, and gastritis. They work by drastically reducing the production of stomach acid. While that can provide relief, long-term unsupervised use has been linked to very serious risks for the brain. Multiple large-scale studies have drawn a clear line between long-term PPI use and an increased risk of dementia. In one study of nearly 6,000 people, those taking omeprazole for over 3 years showed a significant increase in memory loss. Another study found that after 4.5 years of use, a third of patients reported new cognitive problems. So what is the connection? The mechanism appears to be twofold. First, your stomach acid is absolutely essential for absorbing certain nutrients. Most critically, vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is like the insulation on the electrical wires of your nervous system. A deficiency can lead directly to neurological symptoms, including memory loss and confusion. Second, these drugs profoundly alter your gut microbiome, that complex ecosystem of bacteria in your intestines, which we now understand acts as a second brain, constantly communicating with your actual brain. Disrupting this can have downstream negative effects on cognitive function. The key here is duration. These drugs are generally intended for short-term use, perhaps 2 weeks to 3 months. If you are using them daily for years without a doctor's guidance, you are taking a significant gamble. Number 2, the anticholinergics. This is a broad class of drugs with a hidden shared mechanism. They are used to treat a wide range of conditions like Parkinson's disease, overactive bladder, and even respiratory issues. They work by blocking a crucial neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Think of acetylcholine as the brain's lead messenger for learning and memory. When you block it, you are essentially turning down the volume on the communication between the neurons responsible for encoding new information and retrieving old files. The evidence here is stark. A major study from the University of Washington followed over 300 older adults for a decade. It found that those who used anticholinergic drugs regularly had a staggering 54% higher risk of developing dementia. This risk wasn't just present, it was dose-dependent, meaning the more you took and the longer you took it, the higher your risk became. Common drugs in this category include things like oxybutynin for bladder control, benztropine for Parkinson's, and even scopolamine for motion sickness. The danger is that these medications interfere directly with the fundamental chemistry of memory. Number 3. Corticosteroids. These are incredibly potent anti-inflammatory drugs, like prednisone or dexamethasone, used for everything from severe allergies and asthma to autoimmune diseases like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. They are lifesavers in many situations. However, when used long-term, especially in oral form, they can come with a heavy cognitive price. Studies have shown that long-term corticosteroid use can lead to structural changes in the brain itself. Users may experience disorientation, anxiety, depression, and significant confusion. How? These drugs mimic cortisol, our body's main stress hormone. Think of cortisol as the body's emergency alarm, useful in short bursts. But these medications can effectively leave that alarm blaring for months or years. This chronic overexposure can damage the neurons in the hippocampus, which is the absolute headquarters of memory formation in your brain. Even inhaled versions, like fluticasone for asthma, can pose a risk at high doses over long periods. It is vital that these powerful tools are used at the lowest effective dose for the shortest possible time under strict medical supervision. Number 4. Benzodiazepines. This class includes well-known medications like alprazolam, diazepam, and lorazepam, widely prescribed for anxiety and insomnia. They offer a sense of calm in a storm, a quick relief from panic or sleepless nights. But this calm comes at a cognitive cost. Their long-term use is strongly linked to memory loss and an increased risk of dementia, with some studies suggesting they can double the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. These drugs work by enhancing the effect of a neurotransmitter called GABA, which essentially dampens the brain's overall electrical activity. This is why they feel calming, but in doing so, they also suppress the activity needed for memory consolidation, which largely happens during sleep. They can also create a powerful physical and psychological dependence, making them incredibly difficult to stop. The link to Alzheimer's is particularly concerning. The theory is that this long-term dampening of brain function may contribute to the permanent structural changes seen in the disease. For anxiety and insomnia, non-drug approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy or mindfulness should always be the first line of defense. Number 5. Amphetamines. These are stimulant medications most commonly used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. They are very effective in the short term at improving focus and reducing hyperactivity by flooding the brain with neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. However, this is a classic case of borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today. When used for a long time, especially if misused or abused, amphetamines can lead to significant memory impairment. The constant artificial stimulation can exhaust the neural circuits, leading not just to dependence, but to long-term problems with motivation, depression, and memory. The brain is not designed to operate at that level of stimulation continuously. Studies on long-term users have shown persistent cognitive deficits that can remain even after the medication is stopped, suggesting a degree of lasting damage. This is why treatment for ADHD should always be multifaceted, including behavioral therapies and stress management, not just a reliance on medication. Number 6. First-generation antihistamines. This is one that catches almost everyone by surprise. I'm talking about common over-the-counter drugs like diphenhydramine, the main ingredient in many sleep aids and allergy pills, or chlorpheniramine. They are effective for itching and congestion, but they have a dark side. They work in part because they have a powerful anticholinergic effect. Does that sound familiar? It should. They use the exact same mechanism as the second category of drugs we discussed. They block acetylcholine, the memory molecule. They cross the blood-brain barrier and cause that signature drowsiness, but they also directly interfere with your cognitive function. Repeated, long-term use has been clearly associated with an increased risk of dementia. Patients who use these regularly often report brain fog and difficulty concentrating even after they stop. Here, the solution is simple and clear. Switch to second-generation antihistamines like cetirizine or loratadine. They do not have this anticholinergic effect on the brain and are much, much safer for long-term cognitive health. Number 7. The tricyclic antidepressants. This is the one I warned you about. Drugs like amitriptyline and nortriptyline were among the very first antidepressants developed. They were pioneers. But science has moved on for a very good reason. While they can be effective for depression, they come with a heavy burden of side effects, including severe memory loss and cognitive impairment. Like the antihistamines, their problem lies in their strong anticholinergic action. They powerfully block acetylcholine. For older adults who are already more sensitive to these effects, the results can be devastating, leading to confusion, disorientation, and a marked decline in cognitive function. Today, we have far safer alternatives like the SSRIs, sertraline or fluoxetine, for example, which work on serotonin and do not carry the same risk to memory. If you or a loved one is on a tricyclic antidepressant, it is crucial to have a conversation with your doctor about the modern, safer options available. And finally, number 8, statins. This last category is complex and subject to intense scientific debate, but it is one you must be aware of. Statins, like simvastatin and atorvastatin, are prescribed to millions to lower cholesterol and prevent heart attacks and strokes, and they are very, very good at that. However, a growing body of anecdotal reports and some studies point to a potential side effect of memory problems or brain fog in some users. The theory is this: your brain is incredibly rich in cholesterol. It's not the enemy in the brain. It's a vital building block for creating synapses, the connections between your neurons. So a question scientists are carefully exploring is whether drastically lowering cholesterol throughout the entire body could have an unintended consequence in the brain for some individuals. The evidence is mixed. Some studies even suggest statins might protect against dementia. But the reports of confusion and memory loss from patients are real and cannot be dismissed. The key here is not to stop your heart medication, but to be aware. If you start a statin and notice a new persistent fogginess or memory slips, do not ignore it. Talk to your physician. Sometimes switching to a different type of statin or adjusting the dose can resolve the issue. The central message through all of this is empowerment. These medications are not villains, they are tools. But like any powerful tool, they must be used with knowledge, respect, and caution. The greatest danger lies in uninformed, long-term use and self-medication. Your mind is your most precious asset. Protecting it requires you to be an active, informed partner in your own health care. Ask questions, discuss the long-term plan, and always weigh the benefits against the potential risks. Knowledge only works when you apply it. I'm Professor Vitalis. Stay curious, stay healthy, and never stop learning.